Hey guys, Ravenclaw here again, and I hope you enjoyed my first tutorial on the basics of Java programming, which is we just went over the basic variable types and the different data types. But today we're going to go over some more of them. We're going to go over the Boolean values. We're going to go over characters. Like, remember I told you the strings were based upon an array of characters. We're going to go over the characters and how to declare them, initialize them, and use them. We're also going over the Java operators today, which will be useful for when you become into your conditional programming. And lastly, we're going to go over, to end off our variables, we'll go over the naming conventions for each variable that you create. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, what do you mean by that? Just hang in there, and we'll get into all the good stuff shortly. Okay guys, we're back, and we're going to go over the Boolean values here. Now, a Boolean value is basically true or false, or on and off, if you're talking on a binary level. The way we would use these is in a conditional statement to either say, if something is true, let's go ahead and do this. If it's not true, go ahead and do that. So the way we would declare these, like we mentioned before with your integers in the last lesson, we would declare it as a Boolean. Okay, now if you're using Eclipse, when we get into the naming convention part of this episode, you'll notice that a few things highlight in purple, or whatever theme color you've chosen. That means they're reserved. Okay, these are reserved data types, so you can't use those words. So I can't go ahead and type Boolean as a identifier, because it won't let you. So we'll get into that later on. So Boolean, we'll call this test number 1, and we'll call this true. And this is how you initialize it. Not blah blah blah. We'll call it true, just like that. Okay. So that's how you initialize it, saying true, and then you will have Boolean test2 equals false. Another thing you can use these as well is to break out of a while loop. Now, a while loop is something that will continuously run until a condition is met. So you can also use Boolean values, and we'll get into that later on, but these are just some things to keep in mind as we go through. Alright, so if we were to print out these two values, okay, and we just simply went first value is, there we go, concatenation, and we'll type test. Okay. Oh, test 1, sorry. Let's go ahead and print that out. The first value is true. Now we can see number 2. Second value is false. So it just goes to show you that it does print out, and it is recognizing these as something. Okay, it's not just simply hiding it and then that's it. So we can use these, like I said, in an if statement. Now, once again, don't worry about these things. We'll get to them later. Just take it in, and we're just understanding what a Boolean can do. So like I said, if we go test1 equals true, okay, then we can type out test1. See? No, it's not with me today. Okay, so then we can just go, we'll print out you win. And if it's not true, you'll say you lose. Okay, now we can go ahead and run this. And you can see down here, we win, because it is equal to true. Okay, now we can also do something like this. We can get rid of this. When you're using an if statement, everything in here, in the first block, if it's equal to true, it'll execute the commands or the statements within that first block. Now, if in these parentheses doesn't equate to true, it'll jump out and do the else clause, so the false. So we can simply just say test 1, which is true. We run that, and you can see it goes ahead and does it. So that's the basics on Boolean values and, a brief overview of what they're for. So stay tuned and we'll get into the next part. Okay guys, now we're on to characters. And like I mentioned in the last tutorial, characters are a single entity. So for example, a single letter, a number, and so on and so forth. Now, the way that we declare these is we simply type the word car or char or however you would like to pronounce it, and we'll give this a identifier of the letter. Now, when you're initializing these, you need to put them within single quotes. Okay, so we'll put the letter A, and there we go. So now if we go to the print line and we simply put in letter, it'll print out the character you put in. Okay, so if I put 2 in, okay, I've put 2 letters in there, it doesn't know what it is because it can only allow one single character to be put in between those single quotes. So that's something to remember if you ever get an error. Why is this? If you need more than one, right, then you would simply call it a string. Okay, and then see, another error has come up here. Oops. Because of the quotes. Okay, a string needs double quotes, and your character needs single quotes. Okay, so those are the things you must keep in mind. Now, obviously, these characters are that's what the strings that we were talking about earlier was. They are basically an array of characters, and that's why it didn't like having more than one inside the character declaration. Okay, so that's very simple, straightforward, and that's what that's what you would use characters for. And another example would be you can use a single character in what they call a switch statement, which is simply, if the user pressed letter A, do this, and so on and so forth. So now we will move on to the next part of the tutorial. Okay, so on to Java's operators. Now, the first one we already know as our assignment operator, which we used for assigning data to variables. The next ones we move on to are increment and decrement. Now, that is simply adding 1 to an initial value, or subtracting 1 in this instance. So if we give this while loop a, we'll just call this count, we'll give it an initial value of 10, and then we go down into here, we go count. So while the variable count is greater than 5, we want it to do something. So if we go give it a print line, and we go count, we'll just print out the value of count. Okay, so the one, so what we want to do is we're going to go count minus minus, because if we didn't do that, it would go on forever. And so we go like this. So as you can see, we counted from 10, so it's gone, found the initial value, subtracted 1, printed it out. Subtracted 1, printed it out, blah, blah, blah. But as you can see, it decremented. And now you can do the plus plus, and it will do the opposite. The next one is we can actually specify increments. So we can say, decrements, increments, the same thing. We can go equals, and we can go down by 2. So it allows you to specify how much you want to drop by instead of 1. Okay, so you want to go down by 5, 10, 50 million, whatever you want to do. That's how you do it. And obviously opposite, if you want to go up, you just do that. Okay, so you press plus, or you can do multiplication as well. Now the next one is equals. Okay, Now, a lot of people think that that is, equals how to compare values, but it's not. Remember, that's their assignment operator. Now, in this instance, we want to say the variable that we've got, while it's equal to 5, do something. Okay, so if I make this 5, it'll print forever. Okay, because there's nothing to change its value. So if we went in here and used our decrement operator, it'll do it once. Okay, so that's equals. Now we've also got not equal to. Okay, so you put a exclamation point, mark, point, whatever, in front of the equal sign that says this is now not equal. So while the count is not equal to 5, do something. So I'll make that 7, and it'll stop at 5. Well, the value it printed out anyway. But you can see it went down 2, and then once it gets to that value, it says, oh, I'm out, because it is equal to 5. Okay, so now we're moving on to greater than and less than. So you saw this earlier, so you can say, while the count is greater than 5, do something. So as you can see, it'll do something. And we can say, while the count is less than 5, so we can go like this, make it 0, and then we'll just simply change this to ++, and we print that, and you can see it does its thing. Okay, so now obviously you've got the greater than, but underneath you can also say greater or equal to, so it'll obviously go up, and it will only stop when it's equal to the value that you've told it to look for. Okay, and the last ones here, now there's more, but the main ones that you will need to use will be these ones here. Now you have your and or operators. These are logic operators, so I would suggest having a look at Boolean and logic gates and logic operators to understand more what your ands and ors are. If you want me to do a tutorial on those, I'm happy to do so. We can go through logic gates and how it works on a circuitry level too. But for now, I'll just give you the basics of what we use this for. So what and or are, if we go, it's for giving multiple clauses, or something for a conditional statement to look for. So in this would go, if the count is less than 5 and count greater than 7, do something. Okay, so if we go like this, we'll do like this, right? Whoops, what did I do? What did I do? Nothing. Oh, now this is why. Okay, because we've told it and. We've given it 2 different clauses to look for, right? These are 2 different conditions that have to be met before it can do anything. We're saying, now this comes down to logic gates, why it works. So we're saying, while count is less than 5, which it is, less than 5, but it also has to be greater than 7. Has to be, before it'll go in here. So that is a bit tough. It can't really be 2 things at once. So what we would do is we want to go, or, while count is less than 5, right, or greater than 7. It'll work. So that's the basis of it anyway. And this, obviously you can see, like I gave you an example of when we'd use all these operators. So hopefully this will help you out in your coding adventures. So what we'll do now is we'll move on to the next part of the tutorial, and yeah, I'll see you there. Okay, Sam, so we're on to naming conventions for your variables. Now, in Java, there is a certain way you must name your variables. Now, what I will go over is one things that you can't use for a variable. So what you must remember when you're naming your variables, they have to start with either a letter, an underscore, or a $sign. Okay. Equals 10. Let's just do that so it stops yelling at me. Okay. Now, if I did this, if I did 99 problems, that's not going to work because over here, see, syntax error. So in other words, I don't know what that is. Get rid of it. But if I did this, Control X, Control V, all right, it's all good. Okay, so that's important to remember. Now, don't start your variables with a capital letter. Okay, this is just a naming convention. Okay, because in Java, your classes start with a capital. Okay, so as you can see, this is a class. It starts with a capital. Okay, it's just these are conventions that you need to make sure that you do. It's better to get into a good habit to begin with, because it'd be a lot harder to get out of that habit if you haven't done it properly from the beginning. Okay, so we can go like this. We can say hello underscore world. Okay, if you want to separate words like that, that's fine. But a lot of people do what's known as camel casing. So what that is you type your first word, then you capitalize the second word, and then you can capitalize the third, the fourth, the fifth, blah, blah, blah. Now, there's no limit on how long you can have a variable name, right? You just go blah, 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 blah. And now that's my variable name. Obviously not using semicolons because that's just told the compiler to freak out. Okay? But the point I'm getting at is there's no limit. In saying that, you don't want variable names that are 10Ks too long, because you want to be descriptive, yes, but not crazy, because you'll end up having your whole your source code full of variable names. You can't tell a story with a variable. Hello world, today I went to the shops and I found this variable at the store, and this variable is now known as 10. Okay, that's just getting a bit over the board. And secondly, be descriptive. Be very descriptive. Okay, well, like we said in the first episode, the reasons why we need to be descriptive, you can't just go number 10. Okay, what's the number 10 for? You understand. So we can go underscore amount of apples. Okay, so that's being descriptive. You're telling anyone that reads your source code what that number 10 is, and having all these descriptive variable names is not only going to help other people reading your source code, but it's going to help you a lot when it comes to debugging. And trust me, I remember one time I spent probably about an hour going through thousands of lines of code trying to figure out what one variable was that I named, but I couldn't remember what it was. And it drove me insane. But then also coming to debugging, you can have problems, obviously, like variable naming, but it could also be as simple as leaving a parenthesis out, or a bracket is in the wrong spot, or you copied and pasted a block of code and it's gone into the wrong spot. Anything you can do to save you time when it gets to debugging is going to save a lot of heartache. Trust me. So these are some tips when it comes to naming your variables. What I will do is down in the description, I'll put a link to a Wikipedia page that will show you a list of reserved keywords for Java. And these words consist of like break, can't use break as a variable identifier. Okay, so be sure to check that out, because that'll help you to maybe even copy the table and keep it with you for reference. That way you'll have it there knowing that, oh, okay, I can't use that. It just gives you an understanding of why we can't use that. And as we go through these tutorials, we'll come up with each and every one of those keywords, and I'll show you where to use them and where not to use them. But all in all, I think we've now gotten the basics of, you know, the variables, the operators out of the way, which is awesome. So next, I think we can move on to strings and start talking about objects and why Java isn't what they call an object-oriented language. Okay, and I think until then, we'll call it a day. And I just want to say thank you so much for watching my tutorials. It means a lot to me. If you did like it, be sure to let me know down in the comments. Ask questions, guys. If you have anything you'd love to know about Java, hit them up down there. I will comment. I will make sure I get back to every single one of you that talks to me in those comments. Leave a like, and guys, don't forget to subscribe for more of these tutorials, programming tutorials, games design tutorials, guys. When we get into that, you're going to love it. Okay, make your own games, 3D games, special effects, everything. It's going to be great. But until then, guys, I'm Ravenclaw. Thanks for watching.